So today we're making this. Stay tuned. Hi guys, so for those of you who don't know, my name is Michael and I am a woodworker for MK Designs. And yeah, this is a design that I came up with about a year ago. It's a footrest, and I actually designed it initially for Kat because she does a lot of computer work and she likes to prop up her feet, and she wanted something to put her feet on, so I designed this. I haven't put it on my website yet because of a couple of reasons. One, I wanted to wait until I got the domino. To be able to put the legs together to make them a little bit stronger. Dowels work just fine. It's just I'm not in this particular scenario. I'm not a big fan of the dowels. So yeah, that's one reason. And I finally got the domino, and I'm able to do it the way I want to. It's similar to how David Picciuto does his in his video on the footrest that he designed for himself. Some of the measurements are the same, but not quite. Not most of them aren't actually, and I did mine quite a bit different than his. About the only thing that is similar is probably the legs, but that's just by chance. Actually, I saw his video after I designed this. But at any rate, yeah, I built this thing, and the other reason I haven't put it on my website is because of fabric. I'm not in a position with any kind of fabric company or anything like that to where I can guarantee having a certain type of fabric. So I have a bunch of different fabric choices to actually put on the insert for this thing, and I've been playing with different ideas of how to actually market it on the website, but I will get it on there eventually. But in the meantime, I am going to show you how I built this, and I'm going to give you measurements, and so that you can try and do it yourself if you'd like. So yeah, if this is your first time visiting the channel, please hit that subscribe button and click on that little bell so you get notified whenever I come out with a new video, and let's get to it. Okay, so the first thing I need to do is I need to get my rough measurements for this piece of walnut so I can get it cut down to a little more manageable size. And as you saw in the intro, I now have plans available for this. When I first recorded this video, I did not have plans for it, but I was stuck inside due to weather all week, so I decided I would sit down and actually create the plans in Fusion 360, and they are available on my website via the link in the description to download for free. So if you'd like to build this, just go over there and get the plans and have a blast. Now that I have my rough measurements marked, I'm going to cross-cut this into 3 pieces that are going to make up all the pieces I need for the footrest. One thing I forgot to record was before I did this part right here, I ran it over the joiner and got a clean edge. And I'm running that clean edge against the fence to clean up the other edge so that I can rip all my pieces to size. And now I'm going to take that edge that I just cut off, and I'm going to rip all the pieces for the box or the tray that holds the insert for the footrest. And as you can see there's a little bit of stress in the board, so it bound up. And this is one I wanted to leave this in here because I wanted to show you and talk to you about it. If something like that happens and you can't back the board out safely, turn the saw off, then remove the board from it, and then you can continue your cut. And then once I have my pieces ripped down, I'm going to run them over the joiner to get one flat face, and then I'm going to run them through the planer to get the other side flat and parallel to the first side. And now, once I have them all planed down to the correct thickness, I'm going to cut off one edge to make it clean so that I can cross cut them to length. Alright, so the next step is I'm going to create the dados, or the rabbets, on the ends of both of the front and back pieces. And the way I do this is I take the piece that's going to go into the rabbet and I line it up with the dado blade, and then I move my fence over to it, and that gets me close. Once I have it set, then I'm going to make the cut, and I'm going to check it apparently off camera, and you can see that it's a little bit off, so I'll adjust the fence just slightly and I'll sneak up on the cut, and I'll make the cut again, check it again, and then I can make the cut on the other three pieces. Oh, safety first. Make sure you're wearing your safety glasses and dust mask. Now, if you'll remember from a couple of weeks ago in my blade cleaning video, I talked to you and showed you my flat grind blade, rip blade, and this is what I use that blade for. What I'm doing is I'm making the rabbet, or the dado, for, I'm getting those confused today apparently, I'm making the dado in the side pieces and the front and back for the bottom panel. And how I do that is I make this first cut on all four pieces, and then after that I will move the fence over just slightly and make a wider cut, and I'll sneak up on the cut until I get a perfect fit for the 1/4 inch plywood that I'm going to use for the bottom. Now, once I have those cut, I will dry fit all the pieces for the box, and I will measure for the plywood bottom. And this is a piece of walnut plywood that I've had for quite a while actually. But anyway, once I have the measurements, then I will cut the plywood down, and I'm using the blue tape to help prevent tear out. And I know there's some people that say it doesn't help, and there's actually a video out there that claims to prove that it doesn't help. But I'm here to tell you, in my experience, it does. Now, granted, if your blade is extremely dull or extremely dirty, no, they're not going to help much, because the blade's just going to tear the tape along with the plywood. However, with a sharp, clean blade, the blue tape does help reduce tear out greatly. And now comes everybody's favorite part of every project ever. Said almost no one ever. I have to start sanding the inside of the box. I'm going to go ahead and sand the inside of the box or tray, whatever you want to call it, before I glue and screw it together. And what I'm doing is I do my usual thing. I mark it and I sand. I'm starting with 100 grit, and I'm working up to 220. So I'll go 100 grit, 150 grit, and then 220 grit, and then I'll put it together. Okay, and now it's time to assemble it. So the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to put glue on the rabbet and on the end grain on the side pieces, and I'm going to attach it together and clamp it all together and slide the bottom in and put the other side on, and I'm going to do that for all four corners and let it dry. While I'm waiting on the glue to dry on the box, I am going to get started on the legs. So here I'm joining one edge so that I can rip my pieces down to size. And then I will rip them down to width, but I'm not going to cross cut them just yet. Instead, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to cut a 45-degree angle on one end of the leg back pieces. After that, I'll cut a 45 on both ends of the leg top pieces. And I'm using the clamp there to make sure that it stays flush up against the fence. And I'm using my quick stop on my miter gauge to make sure I get the right length. And that way I don't have to get my fingers in there and hold it down and get them that close to the blade. Next, I am going to cut a 30-degree angle on the pieces that are going to be used for the leg front. That way they'll angle out just a little bit. And here I'm just cutting the leg front pieces down to a little more manageable length. Okay, so I cut these. Alright, I cut these, all of these at 45 degrees. You can see they match up perfectly right there. But these are cut at 30 so that they jut out a little bit toward the front. And in order to get everything to line up, I have to cut this piece off about right here. And I've already done that on this one just so I could show you guys how everything worked. And see, now these line up and this one doesn't. So what you do is you slide this up so that the bottom corner matches, and then you just cut this off after everything's said and done. After that, I'm going to get it clamped down on my workbench, and I'm going to get the mortises cut with the domino so that I can start putting it together. Now I'm going to start gluing everything together. So I'm going to put glue on the end grain and down in the mortises and assemble with the tenons, or dominoes, whatever you want to call them. And then I'm going to clamp them up. Now, clamping something like this, it can be kind of tricky. That's one reason why I like these F-style bar clamps. The bottom pad on the screw part, it flexes a little bit and gives you a little bit of play, but even with these you have to be careful when you're clamping the front part, the 30-degree angle to the 45-degree angle, because if you don't have it just right, it will actually slip on you and it'll throw everything out of alignment. So you just need to take your time and make sure you get everything lined up right, get your clamp on there, and let it dry. Now it's time for more sanding. This time I'm going to sand the inside of the legs and the outside of the box. So that way when I attach the legs, I don't have to worry about that, and I can just clean up the glue squeeze out and call it good, and then I can sand the outside of the legs after everything's attached. Now I'm going to mark the spots for my countersink holes for where I'm going to put my screws at, and I'm going to drill those. So I do apologize for this. I'm not sure what happened and why it got so bouncy like that. I will try to fix that in the future. I didn't realize it until I went to edit the video and put it all together. But I'm drilling the countersink holes in the box as well as the legs at the same time. I couldn't do it before on the box because of the way I had to clamp it up. Okay, so once I have the countersinks drilled, then I will drill pilot holes for the screws to go into. And then after that, I'll drive the screws. I put a little bit of paste wax on the end of it and then drive them in, and they drive in just fine. And here I'm cutting the plugs. I'm using a 1/4-inch plug cutter because I drilled 1/4-inch countersink holes. And I'll drill the number that I need and pop them out. I prefer doing this method as opposed to dowels, because dowels you have end grain to work with, whereas this you have face grain. Okay, now one thing that I've seen a lot of creators do is they don't show you their mistakes. And I think it's very important to show you that we all do make mistakes. And I'm going to show you one way to try and fix them. So you're going to laugh here in a minute when I go to put the plugs in, because that's what I'm doing right now, is I'm putting the plugs into the box. And I smacked it just a little too hard. You'll see it here in a minute. Right about there. And it's split off. So the way I'm going to fix this is I'm actually going to go ahead and pull the piece off. And then I'm going to put some more glue on it and clamp it together, and honestly, when it's said and done, it doesn't look like it ever happened. You can't even tell. So right here, my brilliant idea was to show you how I cut them flush. I use a Japanese Dozuki saw and cut them flush, but of course I had to put my hand in the way. So yeah, I had this whole thing planned and then put my hand in the way. So there's that. So now I'm going to cut off the tip of the 45 on the leg back piece. And you can do this before you glue everything together or after. I just chose to do it after this time. And here I have my fence set at 5 inches, and I'm running the top edge of the legs over it to cut off both the front and the back leg parts even with each other. This will ensure that both legs sit flat and even, and they're both equal to, the left leg is equal to the right leg, so to speak. Now this is a neat little trick I wanted to show you. Before I attached them, I wanted to do as much of the finish sanding as I possibly could on the legs, and in order to make sure everything stays flat and even, I have them clamped together where they're even, and I sand both at the same time. That way I can make sure everything stays flat and I don't sand one part more than the other. In case you were wondering what all that noise in the background was. Okay, so to make sure that the leg pieces fit exactly on the box the way I want them to, I measured down from the top of the legs to where the bottom of the box should sit, and I used double-sided tape to stick these couple pieces of Baltic birch onto it, and I'm using just regular packing tape to prevent the glue from sticking to it, and that will allow me to set the box on the legs exactly where I want it to sit. Okay, so now what I'm doing is I'm marking the halfway point on the box, and I'm going to mark the halfway point on the top of the legs as well, and I'm going to attach everything making sure those two lines meet up. That way I can make sure the legs sit in the same spot on both sides. Okay, and now it's time to start attaching it. So I'm going to put glue on the inside of the legs and on the side of the box where the legs are going to sit, and I'm going to attach them and clamp them, and then I'm going to drive screws with pilot holes and fill in the countersink holes just like I did on the box. Okay, so here's a better angle on how I cut them flush. Now granted, my table's in the way and I probably should have adjusted the thing to where it was sitting a little closer to the edge or something else, but at any rate, this is how I do it. I use my Ryoba saw, not the Zuki like I said before, and just cut it all flush like that. And now it's time for one final quick round of sanding. Get it down to all sanded down to 220 and go from there. So the last couple things I want to do before I start putting the finish on is I want to get what glue squeeze out I missed during wiping up, and then I want to take a piece of 220 grit sandpaper and I want to break all the sharp edges and make sure nobody can get any splinters off of this. And so I'll take mineral spirits and wipe it all down, and then I'll start applying the finish. And this time I'm just going to use the spray can Deft, D-E-F-T lacquer. I think I used a gloss on it, and make sure I use my respirator. And I just apply like 4 coats, and after the last coat I sand it down very finely with 1500 grit sandpaper. Okay, so I skipped around a little bit, and I'm showing you now how I do the insert. Basically, I cut a piece of MDF down to a 1/16 on either side, narrower, smaller than the inside dimensions of the box. I will then take that piece of MDF and put it on a piece of high density foam and cut the foam to size. After that, I will cover the foam with polyfill, and then I enlist the help of the sewer and have her come over and help me put the fabric around it. And we want to make sure that we get the corners a little rounded and pulled down and everything looks even, and line the fabric up right where we need it to be. And I'm just using crown staples to hold it all together. So yeah, first of all, I want to apologize for the noise in the background. My neighbors are having their sewer line replaced, and yeah, they've got a big backhoe out here trying to dig it up and all that. I wanted to get this video shot, and they just happened to start at the same time I was trying to start the video. So I tried to work around it as much as I could, but the noise is in there, and I do apologize. But yeah, like I said, this is something I designed about a year ago for Kat, and I don't have it on my website, but I will eventually, as soon as I figure out how to actually put it up there with the different fabric choices. And yeah, I was actually, funny story, I was actually planning on building one of these anyway, because like I said in a previous video, I got the domino and I want to, you know, play with a little bit before I start on the other project that I actually initially bought it for. And this is a good one to actually do because it's small and it's, if I mess it up, it's not that bad. But it just so happened that about the same time I was getting ready to plan to build one, a coworker of Kat's, actually one of her employees, saw hers at her office and decided they wanted one. So it worked out. So this one is actually for her employee, and hers is at her office, so I can't really take a picture of that right now. But yeah, once I figure out how to actually market the different fabric choices on the website, then they will be on the website. And yeah, I mean, hopefully I put all the measurements in. If not, please don't hesitate to let me know. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to let me know, either in the comments below, or you can email me or message me on Facebook. I prefer the comments down below because, one, it helps grow the channel. It helps grow the video and the channel. Two, if someone else has the same question when they're watching this video that you have, they can look down in the comments and see that question and the answer. And it helps everybody out. So they don't have to ask the question again. They can see the answer and move on. You know, they don't have to ask the question again and wait for me to answer. They can just move on. So yeah, that's all I've got for today. If this is your first time visiting our channel, please hit that subscribe button down below and click on that little bell so you get notified whenever I come out with a new video. And we've got some exciting things coming up for you guys. And so please be sure and like, share, and subscribe. So until next time, guys, happy creating.